Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special Hangout on Air. I'm here with Tim Murphy, and Tim will be asking me everything about the current Women's FIFA World Cup happening right now in Canada. So over to you, Tim.
Hi, Joshua. Everything about the Women's World Cup. That's a tall ask. I've only been following it as far as the results on the news. So I understand that Australia are in the quarterfinals. Is that right?
Yes, that is definitely correct. They're playing tomorrow against Japan, 6 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Sweet. And is this the furthest that they've got in a World Championship before?
Yes, it's the furthest the Matildas have gone in an international competition, and it is also the furthest that an Australian national team has ever gone in a World Cup. So the Matildas, you could say, are more successful than the Socceroos.
No question about it. And how do you rate their chances tomorrow?
Well, it's definitely going to be a tough one. They're up against the reigning champions, Japan. And Japan have been a good, solid team throughout the tournament. They've scored some great goals. There's been a few goalkeeping errors. But I can see Australia winning tomorrow. It's going to be another tight and tough match like the one against Brazil. But I reckon Australia can pull through and do Australia proud.
That would be fantastic if it did happen. And I would assume, would I be correct in assuming that after, if it's equal on goals at full time, they'll go to extra time, and then if it's still equal, they'll go to a shootout?
Yes, that's correct. That actually happened in a match this morning. It was France and Germany. It was 1-0 at full time, and then it was 1-1 at full time, and then 1-1 after extra time. So it went to penalties, and as we know, the Germans never lose on penalties, and they came through and won 5-4 on penalties.
By 4?
Yes, on penalties.
So they scored 4 penalty goals and the opposition scored none?
No, the Germans scored 5 goals. So
5-1.
5-4.
Oh, okay.
4, yeah.
Right. I thought you meant by 4, so that's why I was going.
No.
Okay, so was that the first quarterfinal?
Yes, that was the first quarterfinal, and the second quarterfinal was played between China and USA, and the USA won 1-0. So it was another close game, and they won that in normal time.
Okay. And so we play tomorrow morning, and is there a second quarterfinal tomorrow?
So yes, Australia do play. Yes, at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Don't want to get my facts mixed up. I'm not actually 100% sure who plays in the quarterfinals. Who plays in the fourth quarterfinal? I believe. Sorry, my computer's acting up. But the winner of the quarterfinal number 4 will play Australia if Australia get through in the semi-final.
And whoever be the loser tomorrow and the losers from today's quarterfinals, do they have consolation games to play or they're out?
No, they are out of the competition.
Mm-hmm.
But in the semi-finals, the winners obviously go into the final, and the losers play off for third place.
Right, but the others don't play off for 5th place, for example.
No, they don't.
Right.
And it's just come back to me who the other quarterfinalists are, and it's England versus the host nation, Canada.
Okay. And so who's the favourite out for that?
Well, normally you would think it would be England because they're a very good footballing nation. But Canada have the home advantage. So
Yeah.
I'm actually tipping Canada to win, and I reckon their fans will really get behind them. They've been passionate the whole campaign.
Right. Okay. So going back to today's game, so America and Germany won, so they'll be playing each other in the semi-final. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So the women's game, it seems to me, as a casual observer, the um, the strength of the country seem to match up with the men. Like there's a correlation between how they go, but there's differences. Like the Australians are doing better than the men did, but yeah, you've got the old favourites of England and the US. Well, actually, sorry, that's another uh, difference.
Yes.
US men aren't any good, or relatively speaking. But you do have England and Germany potentially coming through.
Yes, that's a very good observation, actually. There's a lot of correlations. Germany, the men's team is number one in the world, and the German women's team is also number one in the world. So Germany definitely ruled football at the moment. Probably other teams that are better, definitely the Matildas do better in World Cups than the Socceroos. The USA do better than the men's in World Cups. Japan, the Japan ladies are a very good team. Their men's team are good as well, but just not as good as their women's team are.
Yeah. And how do the games differ between the men and the women?
Well, most people believe that the men's games are a lot more physical than the women's game. But if you watch the France versus Germany game this morning, you could have possibly thought it was a men's match. They were flying all over the place. They were playing very hard, but they weren't playing rough. They were just playing very hard.
Right. Okay.
And you'll also find that in women's games, they can be at times a lot more skillful than the men's because
Yeah.
they don't exactly rely on brute strength.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a game full of skill, then I would definitely recommend a women's football match.
That's very typical of women's sport in general, that they are often more technically correct and skillful because, they can't rely on the brute strength that men will do. Like in golf, they'll try and bash it as far as they possibly can, where the women will make sure that they're in the middle of the fairway all the time.
Yes, that is definitely correct. And that's what I really like about women's sport. It's not all, gusto and bravo and macho. It's really about thinking about the game tactically.
Yeah. Yeah. So have there been any major disappointments from the tournament? Major upsets, teams that didn't perform?
Definitely Nigeria in Group D, which was the group that the Matildas were in. So Group D consisted of the USA, Sweden, Nigeria, and the Matildas. The Matildas they weren't really expected to get through because the other three teams were very strong. But Nigeria didn't end up winning a match, and neither did Sweden. So that was definitely two sort of shock teams, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That was it was interesting seeing the reporting on that. Yeah, you would see bits about that the Matildas were up against her, but the reporting I thought was quite different too. If it had been the men's team, it would have been, we are in the group of death, we're in the hardest group, blah, blah, blah.
And we were in the hardest group, but we did have a bit more of a chance.
But I never heard any of that. I never heard it reported that way, that we're in the hardest group. It really is disappointing that that the reporting is just so different between the men's and the women's. It's it's incredible.
Yes, there's definitely a difference in media coverage of women's sport and men's sport. And I've written an article about women's football compared to men's football, which got published on the Hero Mag. And
Yep.
yeah, that got lots of good reviews from people, and they really enjoyed my point. And yeah, I just hope that women's football can become equal with men's football, and that's the same with every sport, pretty much. You know, women's croquet, men's croquet for you. It's just all about equality in sport, I think, because there really is no difference. Doesn't matter what your gender is, you still play the same game.
Yeah. Well, actually, croquet is one of the very few sports. Like, there is one other, I think, that is escaping me at the moment. But the men and the women, well, for the World Championships, it's open to men and women. They both play in the same tournament.
That's the same with like sailing and horse racing and stuff like that. It's not gender based.
Yeah, they're two good examples, and there aren't very many of them. In croquet, however, at the world level, there is a women's world championship, but there's not a men's world championship. There's the world championship and there's a women's world championship, and yeah, that is in recognition of the fact that there's only, in my time that I've been playing for 10 years or a little bit longer now. In my time, there's only been one woman in the top 10 of the world rankings. And Jenny's a very fine player, but her chances of winning a world championship are way out of, would be an absolute shock. So there is a big difference between the men and the women, even though we do play at the same level. We do play in the same competitions, but the very top are men. But there are a lot of good women out there who will give me a spanking in a game quite often. On that front, croquet is quite unique. But again, you'll see the same thing that we talked about. Most of the men will rely on some brute strength at times, whereas the women will have to play a more controlled and delicate game. But they're just two differences, and so it is interesting how different sports handle the sexes.
Yeah.
Do you think there'll be a day when you'll see a woman playing in a man's team?
No, I don't. I can't actually see that happening for sports like rugby league. I definitely can't see that happening. That's just like not many females play that sport. Football,
soccer in particular, I was wondering.
Yeah, football or soccer. It's a slight possibility. I think that we will get to the stage where men's and women's football gets equal coverage, but I don't think there's much of a possibility of them playing in the same team. I just both think they'll be treated equally. Are you there, Tim? Okay, we've seemed to have lost Tim, so we'll just
Hello.
hello.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back.
Okay. Yeah. Your screen froze.
Well, your screen froze as well.
Okay. There you go. So going back to your last statement, what I think I heard you say was that there might be a day where a woman should be selected, but she won't be.
No, what I said was that I think there's maybe a possible slight chance that women will play in a men's team. But I think what will happen is there will still be different competitions, men's World Cup and women's World Cup, and they will both get equal media coverage is where I think we'll get to. But I don't think they will create mixed teams or anything.
Right. No. But I'd love to see the day of a woman playing in the so-called men's World Cup.
I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll see. Fingers crossed that might happen one day. So, is there anything that I haven't asked you that maybe I should have?
No, I don't believe so. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up about the World Cup?
No, I don't think so. I think, to be honest, my interest relies on how long the Matildas stay in. So, fingers crossed they can get to the final.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, if they make the final, there's no doubt that I'll sit down and watch that game. Maybe tomorrow I'll watch it. But I've got this nagging nephew who wants a website, so still working.
You have to watch out for him.
Yeah. So that's been interesting, Joshua. I've enjoyed that.
Okay, well, I hope you learned something, and I hope the viewers have learned something.
Sweet.
Okay, well, thanks for joining me.
No worries. See you, everyone.
Okay, bye, everyone.